The Terran vessel Audacity hung in the void like an engineer's fever dream. Its hull was a patchwork of materials. Traditional titanium alloys merged with carbon composites, experimental ceramic plates, and even sections of transparent aerogel. Solar panels jutted out at seemingly random angles, tracking the distant star's weak light with algorithmic precision that belie their haphazard appearance. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the bridge's observation window, her weathered face reflected against the backdrop of stars. 20 years of deep space exploration had taught her that the universe rarely matched humanity's expectations, but nothing had prepared her for the message now scrolling across her neural interface. Attention ABERANT vessel. UAVENTORED controlled space. Your ship design violates fundamental engineering principles. Prepare for inspection, or FAC, and immediate termination. The message repeated in 17 different languages, none of them human. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. First contact scenarios have been theorized for centuries, but she doubted anyone had predicted it would begin with an architectural critique. Well, she broadcast to her crew of 15. Looks like our aesthetic sensibilities have offended someone. Battle stations, but keep it casual. Let's not give our critics any more reason to doubt our sophistication. The bridge crew responded with quiet efficiency. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, their xenobiologist, was already running analysis on the message frequencies, while Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez pulled up detailed schematics of their aberrant systems. "Captain," Marcus called out, his dark eyes gleaming with professional interest, "you should see this. 3 vessels decloaking at Mark 7. Their energy signatures are perfect, too perfect. The alien ships emerged from invisibility like mathematical equations given form. They were identical spheres, their surfaces unmarred by external equipment or visible propulsion systems. They gleamed with an impossible mirror finish that seemed to both reflect and absorb light. Beautiful, Sarah admitted, but a bit impractical, don't you think? Yuki, what are we looking at?" The xenobiologist's fingers danced across her haptic interface. The sphere is considered the perfect shape in many technological civilizations. Maximum volume with minimum surface area. These ships appear to be the physical embodiment of geometric idealism. No waste, no irregularities, no humanity. "Their weapons are charging," Marcus reported calmly. "Very efficiently, I might add. Perfectly distributed energy curves. They really don't like asymmetry, do they?" Sarah nodded, mind racing through options. The Audacity wasn't built for combat. It was an exploration vessel, designed to adapt to unknown conditions. Its mismatched appearance came from years of modifications, repairs, and improvements made with whatever materials they could fabricate or salvage. Every imperfection had a purpose, every seemingly random angle calculated for maximum functionality. "Open a channel," she ordered. "All frequencies, full transparency. Let's show them how primitive humans handle diplomacy." The alien response was immediate. "Your vessels exist in COFFENDs, the natural order. Your species' inability to achieve basic geometric harmony proves your evolutionary inadequacy. You wild submit to quarantine, or be eliminated." "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran exploration vessel Audacity," she replied, keeping her voice steady. "We acknowledge your aesthetic concerns but request dialogue. Our ship's design reflects our adaptive approach to space exploration. Each modification tells a story of survival, innovation, and growth." A new voice cut in, this one carrying notes of what might have been curiosity. "Explain the purpose of your regular solar array configuration." Marcus stepped forward eagerly. "The arrays adjust continuously based on sensor data from multiple wavelengths. We found that slightly offset angles actually increase efficiency by capturing reflected light from nearby dust particles. It looks chaotic, but the underlying mathematics are quite elegant. There was a long pause. The perfect spheres hung motionless, their weapons still charged but not firing. Sarah could almost feel the confusion radiating from them. These beings had achieved incredible technological advancement, but their rigid adherence to geometric perfection suggested a fundamental difference in thinking. Your explanation, Q-on-tains, logial, and C-O-N-S-I-S-T-E-N-S-I-E-S, the first voice finally responded. Optimal design requires symmetry. Your methods, and dangerous anstability. With respect, Sarah countered, stability isn't always found in symmetry. Life itself is asymmetrical. From DNA to the human heart, we've learned to embrace imperfection as a path to innovation. The alien vessels began moving in perfect formation, surrounding the Audacity in an equilateral triangle. Their mirror surfaces rippled slightly, as if their very molecular structure was disturbed by proximity to such chaos. You will be escorted to Federation space for evaluation. Resistance will result in your vessel's DCONS to RUCTION and RECYCLING into more appropriate forms. Sarah shared a knowing look with her crew. The Audacity might appear primitive to these beings, but every flaw in its design had been tested by the harshest conditions space could offer. They had survived solar flares, gravitational anomalies, and micrometeorite storms. Their ship's adaptability was its greatest strength. As the alien vessels began generating a containment field, Sarah allowed herself another small smile. These perfect beings were about to learn that humanity's greatest achievements often came from embracing the beauty of imperfection. The Audacity had just made first contact, and the universe would never be quite so orderly again. The containment field shimmered like liquid geometry around the Audacity, its perfect mathematical harmonies attempting to impose order on the human vessel's chaotic form. Inside the bridge, Marcus Rodriguez watched his engineering displays with growing fascination. "Captain, you're going to want to see this," he called out, his hands dancing across the haptic interface. "Their field is trying to force our hull into a more optimal configuration, but our adaptive materials are, well, adapting." Sarah moved to his station, watching as the Audacity's supposedly primitive systems responded to the alien technology. The experimental ceramic plates were absorbing and redistributing the containment field's energy, while the aerogel sections seemed to confuse the field's targeting algorithms entirely. "Fascinating," Dr. Tanaka murmured, her neural interface streaming data across her vision. "Their technology appears based on absolute mathematical principles. They're trying to solve us like an equation, but we keep changing the variables." One of the perfect spheres suddenly emitted a burst of communication. "CEAC your MOLECULA or reconfiguration, INMEDVATLY. Your vessel's RESPONSE is ILLUGI. And disrupting continent protoxivals." "That's not intentional," Sarah broadcast back, fighting to keep the amusement from her voice. "Our ship naturally adapts to external stimuli. It's how we've survived in deep space." "Impossible. All may TTR must conform to universal constances." The containment field intensified, its symmetrical patterns becoming more rigid. In response, the Audacity's hull began to shift even more dramatically. The solar arrays adjusted their angles microscopically, creating interference patterns that rippled through the field. The patchwork of materials that made up their hull, each added during different emergencies and explorations, began working together in ways even their human creators hadn't anticipated. "Captain," Marcus called out, his voice tense with excitement, "the field is actually feeding power into our systems. These beings, they don't understand inefficiency. Their containment field is trying to achieve perfect energy distribution, But our flawed systems are creating feedback loops. Sarah watched as the alien vessels adjusted their position, maintaining their perfect triangular formation, but increasing their distance slightly. Their mirror surfaces showed the first signs of distortion, microscopic imperfections appearing as they tried to compensate for the Audacity's unpredictable behavior. Your vessel defies tatejurization, a new voice transmitted, this one carrying harmonic overtones that Dr. Tanaka's interface tagged as indicating high-level authority. Explain your violation of standardized models. We're not violating physics, Sarah replied diplomatically. We're just not limiting ourselves to a single interpretation of it. Each component of our ship was designed to solve specific problems, then integrated into the whole. The chaos you see is actually a complex adaptive system. The alien vessel's perfect formation wavered for a moment, a slight asymmetry that they quickly corrected. But Sarah had seen it. These beings weren't just offended by the Audacity's appearance. They were disturbed by its very existence. A ship that didn't follow their rules of perfection shouldn't be able to function, let alone thrive. Look at their energy signatures, Marcus whispered, pointing to his displays. They're burning through power trying to maintain absolute symmetry in their systems. Our primitive design is actually more efficient. Dr. Tanaka nodded, her eyes distant as she processed data. Their civilization must have developed very differently from ours. They sought perfection through uniformity, while we evolved through diversity and adaptation. Their technology is incredibly advanced, but they've painted themselves into a corner, Sarah finished. They're so committed to their idea of perfection that they've lost the ability to innovate. She turned to her communications officer. Open a channel to all 3 vessels. This is Captain Chen again. We understand your concerns about our vessel's design, but perhaps there's an opportunity here for mutual learning. We'd be happy to share our research on adaptive systems and emergent behaviors. The response came in a chorus of synchronized voices. Your proposal is dangerous anstability. You will be contained and is deviated. Preparation for emergency protocols is a device. The alien ships began to pulse with new energy patterns, their perfect surfaces now generating what appeared to be a more complex containment system. But Sarah noticed something their geometric minds had missed: subtle variations in their individual energy signatures, growing larger with each attempt to impose order on the Audacity's chaos. They're starting to crack, Marcus murmured, watching his readings. Their perfect synchronization is breaking down the more they interact with us. It's like they're catching chaos from us. Sarah remembered her xenobiology training. Sometimes, first contact changed both species involved. As she watched the alien vessels struggle to maintain their flawless formation, she wondered if humanity's gift to the galaxy would be the beautiful imperfection of adaptation. All hands, she broadcast to her crew, prepare for emergency maneuvers. Something tells me our friends out there are about to learn that perfection isn't always an advantage. The Audacity hung in space, its asymmetric form a declaration of human ingenuity. Around it, the perfect spheres of the alien vessels continued their containment efforts, unaware that their own rigid perfection was becoming their greatest weakness. The perfect symmetry of Federation space was a sight that would have brought tears to a mathematician's eyes. Hundreds of identical spherical vessels moved in precise formations, their paths describing complex geometric patterns around a massive central structure. A space station in the form of an immaculate dodecahedron. The Audacity, still surrounded by its 3 escort vessels, stood out like a paint splash on a mirror. As they approached the station, Sarah could feel the growing tension radiating from their captors. Each minute spent near the human vessel seemed to increase the subtle imperfections in their previously flawless formations. They're bringing in reinforcements, Marcus reported, his fingers moving across his console with practiced efficiency. 12 more vessels approaching in. Of course, a perfect dodecahedral formation. Dr. Tanaka's neural interface was practically smoking with incoming data. Captain, I'm detecting significant communications between the vessels. Their language patterns are becoming increasingly chaotic. I think our presence is causing some kind of cultural crisis. Attention, AB or ANT vessel. The transmission cut through their systems with mathematical precision. Your continued ISTNC or EPRDs AA38 to UNIVRSL harmony. The Council of Perfection has CONVNET2DTT or mind your FAT. Sarah straightened her uniform, a habit from decades of service. Well, we wanted first contact. We just didn't expect it to be with spacefaring Platonists. Open a channel. Before she could speak, the Audacity's sensors screamed a warning. The reinforcement vessels had begun generating a new type of field, one that didn't attempt to contain their ship, but rather to reshape it forcibly. They're trying to rewrite our molecular structure. Marcus shouted, his hands flying over the controls. They're attempting to force our hull into a proper geometric form. The Audacity shuddered as its adaptive systems fought against the transformation. Plates buckled and reformed, the experimental materials responding in ways their creators had never imagined. The ship's apparent chaos became its strongest defense. With no fixed pattern to lock onto, the alien reshaping field couldn't establish a stable grip. Your resistance is mathematically impossible, came the increasingly frustrated transmission. Subgamite to a HRMONIC reconstruction. Sarah watched as her ship's systems responded to the attack in increasingly unpredictable ways. The aerodrol sections were somehow phase-shifting, creating quantum uncertainties that played havoc with the aliens' precise calculations. The mismatched hull plates had begun resonating at frequencies that generated interference patterns in the reshaping field. Captain, Dr. Tanaka called out, her voice tight with excitement. I'm detecting variations in their fleet's behavior. The vessels at the edges of their formation. They're starting to move independently. Their perfect synchronization is breaking down. Sarah smiled. They can't help but try to understand us. And in trying to understand chaos, they're discovering it within themselves. She turned to her communications officer. Broadcast on all frequencies, maximum transparency. This is Captain Chen of the Audacity. Your attempts to impose order are damaging both our vessels. We understand your dedication to perfection, but consider this. The universe itself is built on probability and uncertainty. Perfect order is stagnation. Growth requires adaptation. The response came in a cacophony of conflicting voices, the perfect harmony of before now shattered into discord. Impossible. Readings. INDICAE. Chaos. SIGPREADing. Containment failing. The massive dodecahedral station began to pulse with energy, its perfect surfaces rippling as it prepared to intervene. But the Federation fleet was already showing signs of disruption. Several vessels had broken formation, their mirror surfaces clouding with imperfections as their rigid programming struggled to process the impossible data the Audacity presented. Marcus, Sarah called out, what happens if we route power through all our systems simultaneously? Really show them what adaptive technology can do. The engineer's eyes lit up with understanding. The resulting energy pattern would be beautifully chaotic, Captain. Their sensors would see it as pure entropy. Do it. The Audacity came alive. Every mismatched plate, every asymmetric array, every jury-rigged system activated at once. The resulting energy pattern was like a jazz solo played in quantum frequencies, unpredictable, dynamic, and impossibly complex. The effect on the Federation fleet was immediate. Ships began breaking formation as their perfect synchronization collapsed under the weight of processing something that defied their fundamental understanding of reality. The reshaping field dissipated as its generators lost coherence. Emergency protocol INITIE. ET. Came a new voice, this one carrying notes of what might have been wonder mixed with its mathematical precision. Requesting. Consultation. Your vessel's operational parameters exceed known possibilities. We must understand. Sarah shared a look with her crew. This wasn't the first contact scenario anyone had trained for, but it was starting to look like something even better. A chance to help an advanced civilization rediscover the power of imperfection. We'd be happy to consult, she responded. But first, you'll have to accept that not everything in the universe can be reduced to perfect geometry. Sometimes the most elegant solution is a little bit messy. The Federation fleet hung in disarray around them. Their perfect formations forgotten as individual vessels began moving in new, unpredictable patterns. The Audacity's chaotic beauty had planted a seed of change in their ordered universe, and nothing would ever be quite the same. Inside the Federation's dodecahedral station, perfection was already beginning to fray. Sarah walked alongside her hosts. Beings of crystalline structure that had once maintained rigidly geometric forms, but now showed subtle asymmetries in their facets. The Audacity's influence spread like ripples in still water, disrupting patterns that had remained unchanged for millennia. Your vessel's operational principles violate everything we believed about technological progress, spoke her guide, a crystalline entity who had introduced itself as second perfect angle of the third symmetry, though it had recently begun experimenting with the nickname Arc. Its voice still carried mathematical precision, but there were new harmonics there: curiosity, wonder, and something almost like excitement. That's because you've been thinking of progress as a straight line, Sarah replied, watching as Federation engineers studied readouts from the Audacity's systems. Their once perfect crystalline forms twitched and shifted with each new revelation, organic irregularities appearing in their structures. Sometimes the path forward means taking a few steps sideways, or even backwards. Marcus stood at a Federation analysis station, enthusiastically explaining the Audacity's adaptive hull technology to a group of increasingly animated crystalline engineers. Their perfect geometric forms had begun to develop unique patterns, individualized variations that would have been unthinkable days before. You see, he was saying, we discovered that perfectly uniform hull plating actually creates weak points. By introducing controlled irregularities and varying materials, we created a system that can redistribute stress dynamically. It's stronger because of its imperfections, not despite them. One of the engineers, its crystalline form now showing distinct spiral patterns, raised what might have been a hand. But how do you calculate optimal performance without perfect symmetry? Our models require geometric balance for predictive accuracy. That's the beauty of it, Marcus grinned. We don't calculate optimal performance. We let the system find it through adaptation. Every new stress, every unusual situation becomes data for the hull's learning algorithms. It's constantly evolving. Across the station, Dr. Tanaka was deep in conversation with Federation scientists, her neural interface working overtime to translate concepts that had no direct equivalent in their mathematical language. The scientists' previously identical forms had begun showing unique color patterns as they grappled with ideas that challenged their fundamental understanding of reality. Biological evolution itself is based on imperfection, she explained, projecting images of DNA strands. Without mutation, without errors in replication, life would never have developed beyond its simplest forms. Chaos isn't just inevitable, it's essential for growth. HFY, boomed a voice from the station's central chamber. These ideas 3TN the very foundation of our civilization. Sarah turned to face the source, a massive crystalline entity that still maintained perfect geometric symmetry, its facets reflecting light in mathematically precise patterns. The Grand Perfect Angle, leader of the Council of Perfection, had finally deigned to address the situation directly. Your civilization is already changing, Sarah replied calmly. Look around you. Your people are discovering something we humans learned long ago, that true strength comes from diversity, from the ability to adapt and evolve. The chamber had indeed become a study in contrasts. Younger Federation members displayed increasingly varied forms, their crystalline structures incorporating organic curves and asymmetric patterns. The more conservative members maintained their geometric perfection, but seemed brittle somehow, their edges too sharp, their symmetry too rigid. Our society has maintained perfect harmony for 10,000 years, the grand perfect angle insisted, though there was a new harmonic in its voice. Uncertainty. We achieved technological mastery through unity of form and purpose. And now you've hit a wall, Sarah pointed out. When was the last time your civilization made a truly new discovery? Not a refinement of existing technology, but something revolutionary. The silence that followed was heavy with implications. Around the chamber, more Federation members began shifting their forms, experimental patterns rippling through their crystalline structures. We've reviewed the Audacity's mission logs, Ark interjected, its form now showing beautiful spiral patterns that would have been considered monstrous just days ago. Their chaotic approach has allowed them to solve problems we never even considered. They've explored regions we deemed too unpredictable for safe travel. They've survived conditions our models said were impossible. The grand perfect angle's perfect symmetry wavered slightly. And what of stability? Of predictability? Of the harmony we have maintained for so long? Change doesn't mean abandoning everything you are, Sarah offered. It means growing beyond what you were. Look at my ship. We still use mathematical principles, still rely on scientific laws. We've just learned to be flexible in how we apply them. Around the chamber, more and more Federation members were beginning to show signs of individuality. Some incorporated flowing patterns into their crystalline forms. Others experimented with asymmetric arrangements that somehow enhanced their natural beauty. Even the most conservative members seemed to be struggling with the realization that their perfect order might not be the only path to advancement. Perhaps, the grand perfect angle said slowly, its perfect form showing the first hints of an organic spiral. There is something to be learned from imperfection after all. Sarah smiled, watching as humanity's gift of chaos continued to spread through the station. Sometimes the most profound changes came not from force or argument, but simply from showing another way was possible. 3 months after first contact, the Federation space looked nothing like its former self. The dodecahedral station had begun sprouting organic-looking extensions, its once perfect geometric form evolving into something far more complex and alive. Ships of varying shapes now moved through the sector, each incorporating elements of both human adaptability and Federation precision. Sarah stood on the Audacity's observation deck, watching as a group of Federation vessels conducted what they called chaos training exercises. The once perfect spheres now displayed unique variations, their surfaces rippling with experimental patterns as they practiced operating outside of rigid formations. It's remarkable how quickly they've adapted, Dr. Tanaka said, her neural interface processing the latest data from their cultural exchange program. Their entire civilization is undergoing a renaissance. They're rediscovering concepts that have been suppressed under their doctrine of perfect order for millennia. Most remarkable is what they're teaching us in return, Marcus added, gesturing to the newly installed systems that gleamed along the Audacity's hull. The ship's characteristic chaos had been refined, not eliminated, through the application of Federation mathematical principles. Their understanding of geometric optimization has actually made our adaptive systems more efficient. Turns out a little order in the chaos isn't such a bad thing. The ship's new hybrid technology represented something unprecedented, a perfect fusion of human adaptability and Federation precision. Solar arrays still jutted out at seemingly random angles, but now they shifted in patterns that followed exotic mathematical formulas. The patchwork hull had been enhanced with crystalline matrices that improved its adaptive capabilities while maintaining its unpredictable nature. Captain, Ark's voice came through the communication system, its mathematical harmonics now carrying rich emotional overtones. The Council requests your presence for the final ratification of the Human Federation Accord. Sarah smiled. The Council of Perfection had undergone its own transformation. Where once a single grand perfect angle had dictated policy based on rigid geometric principles, now a diverse group of crystalline beings, each showing unique patterns and asymmetries, made decisions through a process that valued both logic and innovation. The Audacity shuttle carried them to the transformed station. Inside, the once sterile geometric chambers had become a celebration of controlled chaos. Crystalline beings of all forms moved through spaces that combined mathematical precision with organic flow. Young Federation members, their forms showing increasingly experimental patterns, eagerly discussed new ideas with human scientists. In the central chamber, the former Grand Perfect Angle, now simply called First Pioneer, greeted them. Its crystalline form had evolved into a stunning combination of geometric precision and natural asymmetry, reflecting the transformation of its society. "We have prepared the final draft of the Accord," First Pioneer announced, its voice carrying harmonics of pride and excitement. "It formally recognizes what we have come to understand, that true progress comes not from the pursuit of perfection, but from the balance between order and chaos." Sarah reviewed the document on her neural interface. The Accord wasn't just a diplomatic agreement, it was a philosophical framework for combining the strengths of both civilizations. Federation space would no longer be closed to those who didn't match their standards of perfection. Instead, it would become a place where different approaches to technology and existence could meet and merge. "There's still resistance from some of the outer colonies," Ark noted, its spiral patterns shifting thoughtfully. "Change isn't easy, especially for those who have lived by absolute principles for so long, but they cannot deny the results. Our combined technology has already achieved things neither of our civilizations could have managed alone." As if to illustrate the point, a new ship passed by the station's viewport. It was neither a perfect sphere nor a chaotic patchwork, but something entirely new. A vessel that seemed to flow between states, its form adapting to space conditions while maintaining an underlying mathematical elegance. "That's the first of the new Explorer class," First Pioneer explained proudly. "Designed and built by both our peoples. It incorporates your adaptive principles and our geometric optimization, the perfect marriage of chaos and order." Sarah watched the ship move with fluid grace through space. "It's beautiful," she said simply. "Yes," First Pioneer agreed, its form rippling with new patterns. "We thought we had reached the pinnacle of evolution through perfect order. We never understood that true perfection lies in the ability to change, to grow, to embrace the unexpected. Humanity hasn't just given us new technology. You've given us back our future." The chamber filled with Federation members and humans, each group changed by their encounter with the other. The Federation had learned to embrace chaos as a source of innovation, while humanity had gained a deeper appreciation for the underlying patterns in their seemingly random approaches. As Sarah prepared to sign the Accord, she reflected on the strange path that had led them here. The Audacity had been built to explore the unknown, but none of them had expected to discover that sometimes the greatest exploration wasn't of space, but of possibility itself. "By breaking our symmetry," First Pioneer said softly, "you have made us whole." The Accord was signed, and with it a new age began, one where perfection was found not in rigid adherence to a single ideal, but in the endless dance between chaos and order, between adaptation and optimization, between what was and what could be. The Audacity would soon depart on new missions, carrying with it the marks of both civilizations, and in the space behind it, the Federation would continue its own journey of transformation, learning that in a universe of infinite possibility, the only true constant was change itself.